Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are and whenever you are. Welcome to my podcast, The Devil and the Deep Blue Me, and I am your host, Rich Bruck. And I'm so glad you could make it today. If you've been here before, thanks for coming back. And if this is your first time, well, I hope I don't scare you away. A few episodes back, we talked about the art of disappointing people, learning to say no without the world ending. And I said then that some lessons are just so important, they really need repeating. And this is one of them. So today we're talking about the gift of saying no again. Because let's be honest, it's a muscle that you have to keep exercising. And sometimes you still forget how to use it. And man, if I could give my younger self one superpower, it would be the power of the polite, firm no. Think of the time and energy that I could have saved. Anyway, so even after all of these years, after doing an entire podcast episode about it, I still find myself falling into the yes trap sometimes. Just last week, I got roped into something that, well, on paper, it sounded fine. A favor. But it was just outside of my usual routine and just added enough complexity and just drained enough energy that by the end of it, I was actually wiped out. And the whole time, a little voice in my head was screaming, "You could have said no. You literally just talked about this." It's funny how quickly that we can revert to old habits. You know what's fascinating? There's actually a physiological reason why saying no feels so hard. When we're about to disappoint someone, our nervous system, it kicks in like we're facing physical danger. Our heart rate spikes, our palms get sweaty, and that little pit in your stomach. It's the same response that our ancestors had when they were kicked out of the tribe, because back then, isolation meant death. So when someone asks us for something, our brain screams, "Say yes, stay in the tribe," even when the tribe is just Karen from accounting asking you to cover her shift. It made me realize that saying no isn't a one and done lesson. It's an ongoing practice. It's a continuous calibration of your energy, your priorities, and your boundaries. It's not just about the big dramatic no's to huge commitments. It's about the little everyday no's to things that chip away at your time, your focus, or even your peace. Like the extra committee, the favor that stretches you too thin, the social event that you dread, the project that doesn't align with, your core mission. For so long, I felt like saying no was just rude or even selfish, and that it would make people, dislike me. The thought of letting someone down was, worse than letting myself down. But here's the thing. Every yes to something you don't truly want to do is a no to something you do want to do. A no to your own music, a no to your own time with family, a no to rest, a no to just staring at the wall and thinking, which, let's be honest, is often where the best ideas come from, isn't it? And that's the gift. That's why it's worth revisiting this lesson again and again. When I was coming up in the music scene, especially as mainly as a sidekick in various bands, supporting other singers, and the pressure to say yes was immense. Can you play this gig on Tuesday night across town for no money? Can you help move the equipment after the show until 3 a.m.? Can you learn these 10 new songs by tomorrow? And the answer was almost always yes, because you wanted to be a team player. You wanted to be reliable. You wanted to, get ahead. You didn't want to burn bridges, and you certainly didn't want to seem difficult, especially when you're not the one taking center stage yet. Anyway, so here's the thing that really gets me. We've somehow convinced ourselves that being a good person means being available to everyone all the time. But think about the people you most respect, the ones who really inspire you. I bet they're not the ones who say yes to everything. They're the ones who are incredibly generous with their time and energy within their chosen boundaries. They show up fully for what matters to them, rather than showing up half-heartedly for everything. There was a big part of my life where I was so busy saying yes to everyone else's needs that my own life, my own songwriting, my own musical exploration, it withered away to nothing. I was technically playing music constantly, but it wasn't my music. It was a classic example of letting my own creative fire dim because I was too busy fanning everybody else's. Let me break down what I call the hidden costs of automatic yes saying. There's the obvious stuff, time and energy, but there are the sneakier costs as well. There's the authenticity cost. When you're constantly doing things that don't align with who you are, you start to lose touch with yourself. There's the resentment cost, that slow burn of anger that builds when you're overcommitted. And then there's the opportunity cost, not just the things you can't do, but the person you can't become because you're too busy being who everyone else needs you to be. And what I wish I knew then was that boundaries are not about keeping people out. They're about keeping you in. They're about protecting your creative energy, your mental space, your precious time, so that you can actually do work that you're called to do, whether it's making music or teaching or just simply living authentically. And here's something I've noticed. When you start saying no to things that drain you, you become exponentially better at the things you say yes to. It's like, imagine your energy as water. When you're saying yes to everything, you're trying to water 100 plants with a teaspoon of water each. And they all struggle. They all look mediocre. But when you choose fewer plants and really water them, well, they flourish. And all that flourishing, whether it's your music, your relationships, your work, that's what actually serves the world. The shift really started to happen when I began releasing my own music just under a couple of years ago and taking that step to put myself out there. It was my last attempt to make something out of myself and my music, and that clarity helped me realize that every yes to a distraction was a no to that attempt, and it forced me to be more discerning. Sometimes I play this game where I imagine two versions of myself. The one who says yes to this request and the one who says no. I follow both versions through their day, their week, their month. Which version is more energized? Which one is doing better work? Which one is showing up more fully for the people who really matter? And it's usually a pretty clear answer. It's like when you're building a complex song in the studio. You can add 1,000,000 layers and 1,000,000 sounds, but eventually you have to say no to certain ideas, to certain instruments, to certain effects, to let the core of the song actually shine through. Less is often more, and that applies to your commitments as well. Let me give you some reframes that have helped me. Instead of, I'm disappointing them, try, I'm respecting both of us enough to be honest. Instead of, I should be able to handle this, try, my capacity is information, not a character flaw. And instead of, what if they don't ask me again, try, what if they respect me more for having boundaries? I started doing what I call an energy audit at the end of each week. I look at everything I did and I ask, did this give me energy or did it drain energy? Did this move me toward my goals or away from them? Did this feel authentic or performative? Well, you can start to see patterns pretty quickly when you start asking these questions of yourself. And you know what's crazy? I started feeling grateful for the things I don't have to do. Like genuinely grateful. Last month, I turned down a gig that would have paid decent money, but required me to play music I don't connect with in a venue that felt wrong for me. And driving home that night, instead of feeling guilty, I felt this profound gratitude that I wasn't going to spend my Saturday night being someone I'm not. That's the gift. Not just the time you save, but the integrity that you keep. So the reflection here is that the gift of saying no is the gift of saying yes to yourself. It's the gift of focus, of integrity, of authentic connection. It's the gift of peace. It is a tough skill to master, and you'll probably have to learn it again and again, just like I do. But every time you do it, you do reclaim a piece of yourself. And that is a gift worth fighting for. All right, so now it's time for a little enrichment. Speaking of knowing when to stop or when to politely decline, here are some facts that might make you think. Number 1, the human brain can only truly focus on one complex task at a time. Multitasking is a myth. We just rapidly switch attention. So saying no to distractions is literally how your brain works best. A group of rhinos is called a crash. Imagine trying to say no to a crash of rhinos. Probably best to just get out of the way. The Great Wall of China is not visible from space with the naked eye, despite the popular myth. It's too narrow and blends too well with its surroundings. Proof that sometimes even the biggest yes to a massive project doesn't guarantee effortless visibility from afar. And finally, the longest word in the English language is actually a chemical name that takes 3.5 hours to pronounce. And I'm not even going to attempt it. You'll have to look it up and try it for yourself. But you definitely want to say no to trying to say that one in one breath, or ever for that matter. So there you have it. Facts that might remind you that sometimes less is more, and knowing your limits is always key, even for giant walls. And finally, a little music check-in. This week, I've been working on my new song that's got this strong, defiant, ultimately freeing feel to it. It's got a very clear, assertive riff that repeats almost like a statement. And then the melody has this, well, it's got a sense of relief over top of it. I think I'm going to call it Boundaries and Breath, but I don't know if I like that or not. But anyway, that's its working scratch title for now. But it captures that feeling of setting a limit and then being able to finally take a deep breath. Anyway, it feels good to put that sense of reclaiming space into music. It's a powerful feeling. Speaking of things I'm working on, you can always check out more of my music on any of your favorite platforms that you might do your streaming and or downloading and or purchasing from. I should be on all of them. And if I'm not, it's definitely easy to find me on the second favorite of yours. I do hope that you can find something that you like. I honestly do. I would love to know that I've written something that someone can, relate to or just really have fun listening to. So in closing then, the gift of saying no, again, it's not just a lesson, it's a practice. It's about being honest with yourself and others about your limits, and in doing so, creating space for the things that truly light you up. And that's a wish I knew that continues to pay dividends every single time I remember to use it, which is always the trick. And that, my friends, is it for episode 10. Thank you so much for joining me today. Remember that your messages, your support, your shout outs, anything you can do to let me know you're there really does mean the world to me. And I'm happy to see them. So please don't stop. Keep them coming. Send more. Show all kinds of love. I know I certainly do appreciate it. You can reach me at Rich Bruck or at The Deep Blue Me on any of the platforms. And I'd love to hear from you. So we'll be back next week to talk about something that, it hits close to home for many of us. Overthinking, the silent saboteur. Because sometimes our biggest enemy is our own head. Right? Until then, practice saying no with kindness and conviction. Your future self will definitely thank you for it. And while you're doing that, please have yourself a safe and happy week.